Welcome to Ask the Masters Q&A series. Today's topic is gathering information. So if we could, let's have all the masters introduce themselves and just kind of give everybody a sense of what your niche is, and then we'll get started. We'll start with you, Pilar.
My name is Pilar. My business is Natural Alternatives in Beauty. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland. And my particular niche is the establishment, making sure you have a good foundation for future success.
Right. Who wants to volunteer themselves? Come on, Miss Monica.
Oh, moi?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Monica. I'm in the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti area of Michigan, the state of Michigan. I am Cali Locks, and I primarily focus on all things repair, reconstruction, and troubleshooting, all areas.
All right. Miss Roselee.
Roselee Mathu. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. My business is Roselee's Natural Hair Care and Stylist Excel. And I focus more on setting up your business according to running your business with the Sister Lock standards. And I'm happy to be here.
Well, welcome. I am Dana Wilson of Hair Cares Inc. I'm located in Hopewell, Virginia, and my niche is all things hair loss, hair growth, preventing hair loss. So today's topic is gathering information, and it's all about educating your client prior to coming in, and then gather information once the client comes in for their consultation. And so I guess the first where we want to start is to see if there's any questions out there from our attendees. Let's check and see if there's any questions that you may have up front. Okay, and then there were some questions that were already submitted prior to, so I guess we'll start there since I don't see anything.
All right. So the first question we had actually gets more into they've arrived at the consultation.
Okay.
We want to.
No, I think we should probably go to pre-education first before we go there.
Okay.
You have any questions around that?
So one question is, how do I do a consultation for someone who already has locks?
Ooh. I think Pilar has a story to share around that. So if you can help us with that, Pilar.
Well, yeah. Well, of course, a consultation has several phases to it. And but we're talking about information gathering. Information gathering. But in order to gather information from the client, their hair has to be in a state where you can learn everything you need to about how well it's going to work with the process. So we really can't do a consultation with someone whose hair is not completely loose. And so in this case, you're really just giving them all the information they need to make a decision, because cutting your locks is a serious thing to have to contemplate. And so my story is that I was sharing information or gathering information from a client, and I thought I was doing a very good idea of meeting their needs, like letting them know what they needed to know so they can make this decision. And they're like, I'm absolutely positive that I want to do this. Yes, schedule me. I'm ready to come in. And I'm like, they just seem so fast. And I felt like I'd really explained things well. And when I asked, I was hesitant. I was like, are you sure that you're ready? Do you want to think about this a minute? And she became offended. She was like, I'm a very decisive person. How dare you insinuate that I don't know what I want to do? Why do you keep asking me? And so I said, because we're going to have to cut your hair. And, the expression on her face of, it just helped me understand that when you are doing that, pre-education is important.
Right.
One can certainly imagine that if I had just let her do that, and schedule and come in my chair, a disaster could have ensued, you know, with the possibility of me trying to chase her around with some scissors and cut her locks off or something, which would be horrible. So it was really, that was my experience. And it just really impressed on me that you have to make certain that when you're sharing, that you're sharing the right information in the right way, so that they can understand everything they need to make this decision. But in the short of it, if they have locks, a full consultation is not possible. But educating them about the decision to have a full consultation is what you can do. That's what I have to say on it.
Mhm. I was going to mention how, because with this area, we call that pre-education, right? So in this area, that's where you can make some adjustments. Once you have such an experience, you can implement some things to make sure that the next person who comes with locks looking for services from you already gets maybe like a frequently asked question or something like that that you have, or a line of questioning that you also implement in your, when you talk to somebody on the phone, to ask them, do they have locks? Do they have extensions in their hair? So that you can let them know that in order to come to the consultation, all that stuff must be out if you are wanting to move forward to actually get sister locks.
I would even go further to say not only have the conversation, but you might want to send something in written form, meaning via email or text, however you communicate with your potential clients, to make sure that they understand how they need to show up. Meaning free. They also need to have their hair clean, and you need to be specific on the time frame in which they need to shampoo their hair. Is it 24 hours? Is it the same day? I don't know, whatever your policy is. They need to have it in writing too, because some, like Pilar was sharing, she thought she was being very thorough, right? And even with that verbal conversation, it still wasn't clicking. Maybe she offered also something in writing that the person can visually see it and they can get clear about what is expected of them prior to coming to the consultation.
Yeah.
So one of the things that is floating around in my head regarding this specific topic of pre-education, but particularly the example that was given, is one of the things that we've been taught in class, right, from the time you start all the way up, is that you don't have to cut your hair in order to get the sister locks. So in Pilar's example, what is your definition of cutting?
Oh, well, I suppose.
Right, because it's,
Yeah.
we have to make sure that we make that clear. So there are a lot of things that aren't clear. So when we're making the statements, it's not just, oh yeah, you know, your hair needs to be clean. You have to say shampoo the hair twice before coming within a certain number of hours. If you're going to indicate that you're cutting, then you want to indicate how much you're cutting, why you're cutting, then what happens, and all of those things, so that you don't end up with a crazy person who wants to turn around and grab the scissors from you and use them on you. So you got all of these things that, when it comes to the pre-education, this is why it's extremely necessary. And the pre-education has to happen before the person comes in, which we didn't actually state, before the person comes in for their consultation.
Right.
You must do some aspect of pre-education. There's a lot of remote stuff over the phone, email, texting, that's fine. I'm somebody, this is a hands-on experience. So I tell people, if you can get to me, you need to get to me for your pre-education, so we can have a conversation. I can see if you're half paying attention to what I'm saying, or if you're actually listening to. And then I get more information back. They bring this is when those people bring their family and friends, right? This is when the reluctant spouse shows up. This is when all of the other junk happens, because at the consultation, it's just the client and you as the practitioner. So there's so much that happens with pre-education that Pilar's example just kind of opened a Pandora's box for, you know, being able to talk about.
I'm glad. It just reminded me of a funny story I had when I wasn't clear about that pre-education, and then consultation, the distinction between the two. And I allowed a client to bring her husband. Okay. And this was
To
part
the
of,
consultation?
well, it was part of the information gathering and sharing. Yeah, the consultation. And it was very awkward because she wanted to bring her husband because he was paying. Okay. And so, but what I found was she was not open, like really sharing with me about her hair history and things and why she wanted to do it. She was very hesitant because her husband was there. He was doing a lot of asking the questions. And so I realized from that experience, absolutely, this is not the way to go. Definitely, it's only you and that person in the information gathering and sharing. Well, we can have a specific time where we're sharing information about the process to somebody else. But when it gets down to all those personal questions about the hair history, it needs to be that one person only.
So he should have been invited to the, had you known, the pre-education.
Yeah,
And pre-education, we have to remember, is free, right?
right.
Pre-education is free. So if he needed to come the first time and then they needed to come back a second time, that's fine. It's at no cost.
Mhm. Or I could have provided something to her. And maybe he didn't need to come. I could have provided something to them written, or maybe
Yes.
websites or something that they kind of
Videos, yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's important to make sure your pre-education is very straightforward, because if it is too wordy, the person's not going to really read it. So that's to have certain key phrases like your hair needs to be shampooed within X amount of time, like 24 hours, we're saying, to 48.
24.
Well, 24, I'm sorry. 48,
Yes.
never mind. Don't listen to that. Well, 24 hours, like the hair needs to be completely clean, free of all products,
Mhm.
and loose, natural, unraveled hair. I mean, just because of you, certain phrases can be like bullet points that the person's going to hone in on, even if you have more information in the body of your email, text, information sheet, FAQs, however you're submitting it. Yeah.
I have another example of this was it was a trainee who was they were feeling comfortable to do a consult by themselves, and we had some confusion in the scheduling because it was a woman's name on the schedule, but apparently when it was a husband and wife that showed up, and the appointment was really for the husband, right? So I left her, she said she got it, so I left her to handle what she needed to handle. And then she came to get me because when she would ask the husband questions, he would look at his wife for the answers. So the first thing I had to do was apologize to her that I forgot to mention to you that you're not supposed to have other people in this consultation. It's only for the person who is getting the service. So then I had to, backtrack and catch up to how far did they get. And I also noticed, or it's something that I work on because some things impact you personally. And one of the things that I don't like is people speaking on behalf of other people. I don't care, children, moms, husbands, wives, I don't like that, right? So it was a personal, it affected me personally. So I asked the husband, like, what was he looking for? And the wife said she jumped up with her phone and she's like, oh, I'm the chief hair designer. I was like, oh no. No, I said, who's getting this service? He is. Okay, so I'm gonna need to just talk to him. And then it became like it was a mess, really. It was
Yeah.
because I had to regulate the situation to let the husband know that I have to talk to you and you have to answer for yourself. And he said that, we discuss everything, we're in agreement with, yes, I get that. But actually the journey, once we put these locks in, the journey is yours. You're gonna have to explain this thing to her. She's not gonna be able to be in this journey with you. It was tense, right? So there's no need for you to turn your consultation into that tense situation if you set those boundaries or those parameters during the pre-education. So I learned to actually itemize, like Pilar is saying, the consultation is only for the person receiving the service. Come with your hair looking like this, all the stuff, right? Bullet point, straightforward, so that if you can't meet any of those conditions, you know you need to postpone coming in for actually, getting it done.
Yeah,
So
that
no.
sounds intense, especially that she was the chief hair designer. I mean-
You know, when you're working, you try to be all whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't maintain it that day.
So you just do your best, right? With thinking of stuff ahead of time, making sure that the client is informed before they come in, and even just informed about Sister Locks in general. You may want to ensure that they go to the Sister Lock website or some other places that you have identified that will maybe explain the gist of Sister Locks. Because if you don't, you may have someone that's coming in from scratch, and it may cause for a longer period of time needed at the consultation if you're starting from scratch.
It also creates issues of expectation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So get rid of as many of those as is possible. Oh, well, I thought Sister Locks were this. Oh, well, I thought Sister Locks were supposed to. I wanted my hair to look like I needed these kinds of, it was only supposed to take this long to settle in.
Mhm.
A lot of these things and expectations can be whittled out by doing the other stuff. I just wanted to go back because it's still not been resolved. And if I were a newbie, I would feel uncomfortable. And it's just the one point. I personally am going to say that you don't have to come with nothing in your hair. By nothing, I mean, you can have locks established that you have let grow out
Mhm.
Okay.
to pre-education. And in that space, we can talk about what can and or should happen from that point based on how you understand the process of Sister Locks and where you want to go and how I'm able to help you. So anybody who's heard that you have to have your hair cut and that's all you held on to in this conversation, please understand that you can have a conversation in pre-education that helps to figure out where the person wants to go and your best route in order to be able to deal with what they're currently involved in as far as locks, twists, or whatever else is currently in the hair. Pre-education.
Pre-education.
And you can decide from that point if there's an aspect of ability to transition, but you have to have a level of knowledge in order to do that. So yes, there are variations of when people can get the Sister Locks, i.e. transitioning from one to another. But if you don't know how to make that transition reasonably, everybody can't just transition. So please understand that transitioning has to come with a level of knowledge that you possess as a practitioner in order to make those things happen. Other having that person understand what they need to do with locks or whatever else is in there prior to the consultation is extremely important for you to have to explain before they get to your chair.
That's true. I like that. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, because if we make sure that they have a full understanding, then they can make the best choice. Because an example would be someone recently reached out to me about getting a consultation, and I gave them my little, and we chatted a little on the phone, and then I reinforced it with the information that I send ahead of time, because she doesn't live in the state. And yes, I do have clients who fly from out of state or drive or whatever they do, but I could, based on the conversation we had on the phone, I could tell that's not something that she would realistically be able to do. So when I broke down what the whole process is, because she just saw her sister's hair and thought it was beautiful and wanted that, but she didn't know anything about consultation, follow-up visit, locking session, check-in, follow-up visit, locking session, all that stuff. She didn't know how much was involved. So when I explained that, she realized, oh, this is not something I can do with you when you are so far away from me. And I was able to assist her in finding someone in her local area, which would have been more practical for her. Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
That's a perfect example.
Mhm.
Mhm.
the virtual, during the shutdown, I would do virtual pre-education,
Oh, okay, great.
and then we would set a date for, whenever later when things were back open. Uh, and a lot of those dates kept being pushed back.
Of
But
course.
but right, we would just set a date when it looked like, everybody could come together.
Mhm.
And that's when the whole consultation, including, checking the hair and everything, could happen. But at least you could get the information you needed about what the process is about. And it was interesting, during that time I had a mom who wanted to lock her child's hair, and the dad was all in the camera like, you
But
would
that's the perfect example.
right?
Exactly.
What you doing to my baby's hair? Really
No,
good.
that is perfect. I didn't even think about, well, I wasn't doing it at the time, but that's a perfect idea during COVID, during the shutdown, is to do those virtual, like, I guess you can call it a look-see or something, right?
Or even with Pilar's example, when you've got people who are coming from a particular distance away,
Right.
it's so much more convenient to do the video,
Yeah,
That is cool.
the live chat.
Yeah, yeah,
good stuff. All
Yeah.
right.
that pre-education is key. It
Mhm.
really kind of sets the tone, right? The person already have, they know what's expected when they come in, how their hair should be, or what's expected even prior to them coming in regards to the consultation itself, what's going to actually happen, right? So they
You
show.
also, oh,
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, you also set a level of understanding and expectation from practitioner to client of
Right.
who you are, how you operate your business, your level of professionalism, that there is an expectation of you or from you of them, so that
Mhm.
they can't just wander in. So you start to set your level of how you run your business. And hopefully it's not that they can just walk all over you and run all over you, but that it's respectful, but it's definitely there.
Mhm.
Right.
That just makes me think about, I would share that if the client or the potential client is not interested in the consultation, I would tell you that that is a red flag. Because they're ready to make a choice without all the information, right? And so they can be making a choice without all the information. So although they probably seen their family members and watched the process, they're not relating it to themselves and how that's going to impact them. So I would say definitely red flag on the play.
It also messes with you. Yeah. It
Mhm.
also messes because you have to get that information. The consultation isn't primarily for the customer or the client. It's for you as the practitioner. So if you don't get that information, or you try to put it in an hour or two before you do the establishment, you don't have any idea of what, anyway, y'all know what's.
And setting up, because you're being firm about things that are imperative to do this work, you could end up with someone who's like, well, she wants me to come for a consultation and I don't want that. So they go to have a different experience with someone else. And then they come back to you contrite with, I should have seen you in the first place. What is
Or I went someplace else and now can you maintain it?
Fix it.
and you're, no.
Yeah, the fixed part, that's a whole nother.
Yeah. We
No,
can't do
but
it.
no, well, I guess what I've had is people just remove, ask me for a restart because they know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I made a mistake and please, can you?
But that's usually what I've had similar experiences, because at a time when you're not accepting clients, you can't take on any more people, and you give that information to someone, they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get it done somewhere else, and then they don't have the experience that they know that they should have. Then they come back and they're like, yeah, I should have just waited whatever length of time you had said. I've had several of those type of experiences, which I feel some kind of way about that.
People live and learn, everybody.
There was something I wanted to add. So I'm a fan of scripts, right?
Okay.
So when someone calls to say that they're interested in sister locks, I have a spiel that addresses that, you know, it's offered in 3 services. This is the first part. This is how long it takes. This is what we're covering, blah, 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 like that.
Mhm.
During that time is where whatever pushback you're going to get that's the time to experience it.
Mhm.
And so I have a lot of African ladies coming to get their hair done,
Mhm.
and they're not used to, especially if they've come like recently from the continent, they're not used to making an appointment in the first place and having to wait and all this, right? They're used to, you wake up, you decide today I'm gonna get 1 million braids, you're gonna go down the street, 5 ladies are gonna do it, you know. So when they see, you know, whoever they meet who has sister locks and then they are referred, they are expecting that same experience. So when I answer the phone with that level of ABCD, and when I ask about, do you have extensions? Because now I know to ask them, they usually have extensions in their hair. They've never worn their hair out. So that's another requirement that I have for them. Like, once you take out the extensions, wear it out for like a week. Then we we do the consult. So there's always that, what? You expect me
No,
to do?
you're absolutely right. I've had that experience as well. As if they're wearing extensions or something, or tracks or something, what am I supposed to do? Like, that is the question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've found a way to, you know, you take your hair out, come for the consult, and then we'll do something with it afterwards. You know, you find your way to accommodate the
Mhm.
people, because they want it. They want to stop having a certain lifestyle and change it over to the Sister Locks lifestyle. So being able to accommodate people or be creative about the solutions you can give them, like Monica was saying, whatever state they're in that pre-education time, it doesn't need to be changed immediately. You just need to be giving them the information. So once I know that you're panicking about wearing your hair loose, then you're not ready. You're not ready, right? So then I asked them about what research have they done, right? And lately, a lot of people's research is on YouTube. So I require them to go to the Sister Locks website, send them the gallery, send them, you know, places that I know this is where you can see what Sister Locks looks like, but go to the Sister Locks website and I ask them to confirm that the information I'm giving you right now is what it says on the website. So if they don't go to the website, I can tell.
The other thing that I offer is I have a few clients who I will call and reconfirm, but they're willing to talk with people about their experiences. So depending on where the new client is, you know, from where they're coming, that's the current client with whom I line them, right?
Okay.
So if you're someone who's never worn your hair natural and you're just transitioning, okay, this is the 1 or 2 people that I've got who are willing to talk with you. If you're coming from a bad experience and you're transitioning from one consultant and I'm doing repair work, that's a whole different series of traumas. This is the group of people I can, you know, give you the opportunity to speak with, you know, all of the different things, but having someone give you a firsthand account of their experience, working with someone who's actually being able to do the work, as opposed to, well, I didn't know where to go to next, girl, so it really helps you make a better decision overall, because you may decide, I don't want to go through that.
Mhm.
Or I'm not ready to experience that emotionally or at my job or with my spouse. Or one lady, her children teased her, what do you got in your hair, mama? I don't like this look anymore, mama. She had boys. I don't like this look anymore, mama. You have to do something with this. The pretty mama that we used to have is not, she kept getting reamed and reamed and
Oh,
reamed.
no.
Yeah, and then she stopped coloring her hair, of course, because that's one of my requirements, especially when you're, you know, in the newer phases. And her husband started giving her drama. And now that her locks are past her shoulders, beautiful, full, no worries about the color. Her son's playing her hair constantly while they're talking to her, they're twisting her locks. it's a whole different story. But sometimes the trauma isn't yours. You're living someone else's trauma, right? And it's being imparted on you because the family members were going through something. So it was really helpful for, you know, a potential to hear that portion of the situation that she was dealing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a great. I have had some experiences where I was able to have certain clients who are willing to speak with people, and I will schedule a check-in where the interested person will pop in, you know, in the transitioning, they're finished with their appointment, and just get to have a little chat, you know, with the client, my client, before they have a little chat with me. And it really is helpful because some people, yeah, they need to have that experience of having certain fears allayed, and, you know, someone who's been through certain things can do that.
Mhm. I actually personally had that experience when I was considering Sister Locks. The consultant matched me up with one of her clients. Now considering that was what 20 something years ago.
Years ago.
Right, it wasn't that many people.
Yes.
It wasn't that many people with them, and so I'm like, I need to see and touch a little bit. And the lady was so gracious to allow me to do that, and I was sold. I was sold once she shared with me her experience. So
Yeah, I think that emotional, I feel like you have to be the client's emotional ally in terms of what they're going to experience in terms of other people, right? So in that, also in that pre-education, when you're asking them like how long they've been thinking about getting Sister Locks, it lets you know how deeply or how strongly they feel about the journey that they're about to take, or how well they know that it is a journey that they're really gonna have to stand their ground and be like, I'm trying to do this for me. If you don't like it, I'm sorry.
I had that experience. Well, I had the experience of not deep diving into that acceptance area. I had a lady come in for a consultation. She was turning 60 and she was so excited. She told me her whole hair history, like she was ready to be herself, you know, and this was her birthday present. And we went through everything. Well, she sample locks, all that good stuff. She showed up for her establishment appointment and tells me that she cannot go on with it because her husband said he would leave her.
Oh, wow.
Because he was not in agreements with her getting locks. And I was just stunned because she showed so much confidence and so much readiness. However, I did not pick up on some cues to really kind of get more sense about her family, like what her family felt about her getting the locks. And if I would have known of asked the right questions, I would have maybe been able to provide that spouse with some information prior to her appointment as well.
And yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Rose.
isn't it that hindsight is like 2020? Like you can go back and be like, if I had, it was that time, there was that thing, I saw it and I should have.
Sometimes it's 2040. It just
Right.
snaps you.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I always appreciate about Monica, when I trained with Monica, she was always about, what's the follow-up question? What's the follow-up question to that? What's the follow-up question to that? How about from that, right? And it's really important to be listening for things that are, they say a certain thing, but there's something that they're not saying. So if you ask a follow-up question, then you get what that thing you're supposed to really hear. And be able to navigate that thing with them, because you know it's hard to ask people. You're not going to ask people to go against their spouses or create friction and disharmony in people's homes, right? You want people to make the decision on their own and know that whatever comes after that, they're able to handle.
I think I got caught up in her confidence and excitement about
Her enthusiasm became your enthusiasm.
I was all in. 60, yes, let's do it.
You forgot who you were. You forgot who you were.
I forgot who I was. I was so caught up. I'm like, yeah, go girl.
Yeah. So I think for me, my favorite icebreaker question is just the simple question of how did you hear about Sister Locks? Because then I
Always.
kind of sit back
Right.
and then this whole story just comes pouring out. And then you just write down, oh, okay, I'm going to ask a follow-up question about this thing they just said. You just start writing follow-up questions down based on the story.
So
And
Pilar, do you ask that question in pre-education
Yeah.
or,
Mhm.
okay, good, because that's when I also ask, because a lot of people don't ask it until their first phase of, until the information gathering session of the consultation. And it's too late at that point.
Right. Right.
It
Yes.
just is. And that also is, even though we ask this during, the paid portion of going through Sister Locks and the consultation, what kinds of products and habits do they currently have prior to getting the Sister Locks?
Mhm.
Because if you don't understand your product in terms of the world of Sister Locks, which most unfortunately practitioners don't, if you don't understand how the product works, and that includes things like what the green tea shampoo actually does, the salon formula, and then the starter shampoo, they aren't equal by any means, unless you've got particular characteristics. If your client does certain things, then what does that mean in their Sister Locks journey? And how can you help them work through that based on your understanding of your product? If you don't even consider that prior to them getting to that spot, then you end up with issues later on and them trying to supplement stuff and doing things behind your back, or they're in your chair and you can feel things on your fingers, but they'll tell you they didn't use anything, all of that kind of drama. You need to be able to have those conversations or know to, ask somebody, well, what is your current habit? What kinds of product do you like to use a lot of product, or are you pretty much natural? And that's an okay question to ask somebody during pre-education, because it makes them start to think.
Right.
And
Or
then
the color, right?
the color, ooh,
The color.
that
Like you
hair
can't
jewelry.
see like a little bit of gray. That that's a huge one. Mhm.
But so do we have any other questions about the actual consultation part, or?
So the actual consultation part, yes. So let me share with you guys. I'm going to share my screen. Oops. So we're going to share. Stop. So the question was, when is it appropriate to say that Sister Locks is not a good fit for you? So this is an example of the person's hair at the oops. Sorry. Okay. This is the person's hair at the consult. Oops. I don't know how to use my stuff. Yeah.
Oh, this is a great example of someone that definitely needs to come in for pre-education. Because I know each person will have their own process. Some people do it over the phone, pre-education over the phone. Some you would do via text and email and all that. But this would be a great example of someone that would need to probably come in for pre-education so that you could see what's going on with their hair.
What would be the key then, or the cue for you as a practitioner, especially new practitioners, to listen for, to say, oh, okay, I need to tell this person to come in?
I would think in this particular case, that person is definitely probably going to say that their hair is thinning, or they have hair loss issues. And this is one of the reasons why they're deciding to go to Sister Locks.
So thinning, hair loss issues. Okay.
That would be in my experience, most people that is experiencing a dramatic amount of hair loss, they're going to tell you that up front, because they want to know if this is even an option for them. And so that would be your cue to have a person come in so that you could take a look at their hair. Now, without being a hair loss specialist, some of the questions that you would want to ask that person is, how long have you experienced this hair loss? How long has it been since it got to this state? It could be, you know, the longer the time, I mean, obviously, the more you would think that this is what it's gonna be.
Permanent, more on the
And it
permanent
might
side.
be on the permanent side. So
Okay.
you could move forward. I mean, obviously, you would be sharing with that person that Sister Locks is not gonna change the density of their hair, right? That it's still gonna show up this way, but it may camouflage it some. But you would definitely want that person to come in. And if you don't know, if you obviously you're not educated on hair loss, you would have that person go see someone, go see a dermatologist or see a trichologist prior to getting the Sister Locks established to see if there is any opportunity for growth, any opportunity. In most cases, if that person does need treatment, you would want them to do that prior to doing Sister Locks, because there's a lot of manipulation and things of that nature that needs to be done on the scalp. So it would be counterproductive to getting Sister Locks if they're going to do that.
And I appreciate you saying that, because I have a number of clients who have been going through various things and then getting treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the treatments, after they get to a particular point, they can do themselves, either topically or, you know, more regular, lighter injections or whatever. But I had to ask what the product is, because a lot of it is steroidal.
Mm-hmm.
And we as practitioners can't have our hands in those steroidals raw. You can
Right.
put gloves on and work, but if you don't know that and you just think, oh, okay, well, good, they're doing these things. And as a practitioner, you put, you know, clean, uncovered hands in that hair, you then touch other stuff and you can really cause yourself damage.
Mhm.
So absolutely learn what it is that they need to do. And if they are going for things like Dana is stating and suggesting, then you need to know what it is as a practitioner, so that anything that you decide to do in working with that client, you're very much aware of how it can affect you, your person, anybody else in your family, et cetera, that you may, if you're uncovered, affecting.
One of the questions you may also want to ask is what the sensitivity level of their scalp is, right? Because they may have some real sensitivity to their scalp, and that's going to impact, even though if they've had this hair loss for a long time, if it's inflamed, because that's a sign that is inflamed, they may not be a candidate for Sister Locks because of that inflammation, just the sensitivity level of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
It's good stuff.
Mhm,
Thinking,
mhm.
I do have one story that goes with what you're saying, Dana, because it was she came for, you know, we've done all the pre-education and that was fine, and she came for a consultation, and we were looking at her hair. She had mentioned that she had some thinning, but in the process of doing the whole gathering information about her hair and looking at it, I realized that, you know, this is not something that I think we should move forward with. And I said, I gave her some recommendations to see a medical professional, and she did. And it turns out that she had anemia for some time,
Mm.
and it was affecting her hair. And so now she's followed the protocols and everything is coming back to normal. And so she's been reaching out about possibly getting an establishment at this time. So at that time, it was not a possibility for her because she had things medically that she needed to take care of. And fortunately for her, following those processes had a successful outcome. So she has an option now if she wishes to move forward with getting Sister Locks, that her hair would be healthy. Yeah.
So there are a lot of other medical things that you might want to know, especially the way that they affect the hair. So another question is, how do you ask those questions without feeling like you're invading somebody's privacy?
Some things you just, for each person has their own way of approach, but I think I just come straight direct. I mean, I first ask, is there anything that will impact your hair? And of course, some people don't understand that medication may impact their hair and hormones may impact their hair. So if they say no, then
Stress.
right, then you can start listing. Well, some of the things that people don't really realize that impact hair is hormonal changes. So if you're going through the change, that would be something I would need to know. If you're pregnant, that is something that I would need to know. So you can, even if they're not just forthcoming with it, you can ask and give them examples. So then they maybe say, oh yeah, that's true, I am pregnant. You know, or something, something of those lines, right? So I think I go straight to it, but if I have to dig for it, I will.
Yeah.
I have my questions groups in topics, so I like the transition of now I'm going to ask you these type of questions, and the reason I'm asking them is so that we put our shoulders down about why you asking me these kind of things. And I also challenge them to look up the side effects of the things that they're taking. And I like to keep keep my little list of the things that people commonly come back with. Know that if you haven't checked, did you know that this has this type of side effect? So that I think it also takes up the service a notch in terms of how well I want to work with you, so that if anything happens, it's not like, oh, what's happening? We can always go back to, hey, we had that conversation. Do you think this is the result of this thing? Because we're not just here to, like, have you sit down and do a thing, and then when things change, the practitioner's looking clueless, like, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. Right? That's not what we try to do. So I like keeping that list of things that people commonly, like, high blood pressure medication, all that kind of thing. So
That's also really good to follow when it comes to people, how they eat.
Yes.
Because people who eat a ton of carbs, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar. Yeah, but you're eating chips, you're eating a ton of rice, you're eating pasta. They all break down very similarly, especially if you're doing a lot of it. So aspects of inflammation or stoppage, right? One client stopped all sugars and carbs, right? She was twitching constantly because she wanted just some rice with her food. But the bottom line was she even started seeing more hair growth because aspects of inflammation in different parts of the body were now reduced and more nutrients could get to her scalp and other places. So learning what people do and don't eat. I always ask people, what is your favorite foods to start with? And then I say, okay, well, what are you eating when you wake up in the day? Do you have a first thing? When you have your coffee, oh girl, Starbucks, triple caramel macchiato, I don't know, because I don't do Starbucks. I don't do, y'all, you see, each one of you laugh, so you do it.
I don't really do stuff.
But all of those kinds of things, and it's like, it's a sugar drink with, some coffee added is basically what the situation is. And if you're doing this 2 to 3 times a day, every day, the impact on your body is crazy. So just cutting back on a certain number of things in terms of eating dairy, as much as we all love cheese, and that macaroni and cheese is slamming almost always, no matter where you get it from, it is not healthy. It is absolutely not healthy for the system, right? Yeasts. There's so many different things that once we get to a certain age, our bodies are so impacted by all of this that when you start to learn what all you're putting into your system and how it's messing it up and how it's affecting your hair growth, right? Being a person who has hereditary hair loss, massive hair loss by 50%, right? I thought that I was going through something, well, stress, which, Dana kind of mentioned earlier. Yeah, whole nother situation. But it helped me to realize that if I eat and change some of the way that I'm eating and actually take assessment of what I'm eating, then I can affect how much hair loss I actually have. And it has made a difference for myself, and then how I'm able to relate to my clients, and then feeling confident about asking those kinds of questions. Because people don't want you, why are you asking me what I'm eating? I'm not offering you any, and you're not paying for my food. So why is that question even there? But if I can explain why, because I now understand it better, then, you know, you as a practitioner have a much better ability to ask those kinds of questions as well.
And
I
that's
like
why
what Roselee said, that when people came in, she made a note of more
Yes.
things that people were coming in door with, because when you get
Yes.
started, you don't know the answers to this stuff. Look, you just
You
want
don't even know to ask it.
you don't know to ask it. I mean, you just come in. What? Let me. How long you been here wearing your hair like that? What's going? You know, you just asking the basic question. You don't.
It's like 5 to 10 questions. That's all I got. That's it.
But if you have a running log, right, and you look at every encounter as a learning lesson, you know, you can add to your repertoire. You know,
It also helps you to be able to figure out what kinds of follow-up questions to be asking.
right?
So, you know, I'm pointing this way because that's where Roselee is on my screen. I don't know where she is for anybody else. But the reality for me is I am a stickler for the follow-up, because there's always something more,
Right.
primarily for me and or for that person to actually think through. So yeah, I drink water. Well, how much water?
Mhm,
I drink about a bottle a day. Well, bottle a day, one of these little bitty bottles,
mhm.
one of these big old bottles, you know, how much of is it artisanal water? Is it, what is it?
alkaline.
Alkaline
Yeah.
water.
But see here,
Alkali-
a new practitioner, you that's not the
Mhm.
question that you will initially be asking about people's
don't know.
water intake. It is they presented themselves in such a way, they had presented a situation that you had to ask that question, or based off that follow-up, right? Oh, my scalp is so dry. That might be something they may share with you. Or I have flaky scalp, right? So then that gets into, let's get down deep into the health issue of it all.
Initially, if you don't know, but that's why I'm saying,
Yeah,
ask these questions ahead of time, make that food component a reasonable component, because then you'll be able to learn. And then alkaline water, what's your level of alkalinity? What the providing in the bottle may not be what you need.
Mhm.
So if you don't know your level of alkalinity, getting bottles of alkaline water may actually be relatively detrimental, because maybe you're already overly alkaline and you need something that's more acidic. You got to know these things and not just, oh, I drink alkaline water. Ooh, that's not what you need.
But
What were you
that's,
saying, Rose?
but that's what I think, that's why I was saying that this consultation is a level up from anything that anybody has ever attended, because they come in feeling like they're really doing something, and then they find out that, well, actually, I'm not even doing the right thing for me, because usually you're doing things that other people are doing. You're not doing it for you, and that customizing for you is what we're really trying to do.
Yeah.
And the benefit of having this information in the long term is that if the person moves forward and is there your client, it could be that there's some piece of information they, you know, they work in a law firm and they're dealing with bioterrorism. I don't know. And, you know, and you just wrote that in your notes, but it had no application at the time.
At that
But then later, issues come along. Oh, well, that's right. She has this high-powered, high-stress job. Let me ask about stress later on in the future, even though you've addressed it prior to. So it's instead of having just a base level knowledge of your client and having to constantly and find out more and more, because you're always going to find out more as you know them. But if you have a nice broad spectrum understanding, when other issues arise after the whole process of the establishment, follow-up visit, and ongoing appointments, you might also know what kind of questions to ask going into the future when you have to deal with certain things.
So clearly, this is not about just doing hair, right?
I'm just trying to get paid.
No, you're
This is not about doing hair and
Yeah,
getting
me especially, right?
paid, right? Because even the money will probably never really equal out to the effort and the continued education that you have to do to be a very good, successful consultant here.
And it's also the people that you attract, I think, have to do with the journey that you're on. Like Monica's deep in the nutrition, right?
Mhm.
I'm more about how you feel about your hair, like the words you're using to describe your hair. I was meet people who are so down about how difficult their hair is, and my job is to let's switch that up, right?
Okay.
And that's the journey that, and I know in the past when I was still learning that that's what I was really supposed to be doing. I had some clients that gave me a really hard time even in between appointments, like, why is my hair doing this and why is my hair doing that? Because we didn't get to a place where you're okay with the fact that this is your hair, right? We didn't talk enough about that. So though all those experiences that you have, each client that you meet, there's some things that happen that should make you pause and be like, what did I miss last time, and what do I need to include for next time? And that's how your consultation gets even more robust, and it takes longer than it did before, because you're really trying to get to the nitty-gritty to decide even if you want to expend that energy, because sometimes you really.
And see, I attract busy clients. And so I always want to connect the natural freedom that you can experience. So connect what they have to do to being free of those other things, right? Or being freed up so they can, live the life that they want to live, right? So you have to take care of your hair this way to get that freedom, right? And they're just going for the freedom. So I always speak to that piece. Let's get this natural freedom journey going here.
And once you get to a certain level, you speak about them all, and you're able to speak about them all concisely, succinctly, in a way that actually focuses on this particular client in front of you. You're not talking, you're not flipping through all of your pages, going through all of your notes of all of the different topics of every. You learn what things are more appropriate for each of your clients so that it becomes a well-rounded consultation, and it takes longer. So you're not going to do a 30-minute consultation. It may take you an hour to 2 hours, because you may have a client who actually has something to say. They're not just 1 or 2 word answers or responses, or they hadn't quite thought about something, so you have to spend a little bit more time talking about it. That's okay. Give yourself an approximation of time, 2 hours-ish. If you take that long, then you've scheduled it. If you don't take that long, then that's time to chill and get you another, what is it, caramel macchiato? Who do you what from Starbucks? No.
But that's why you do that pre-education too, right?
Some of it, yes.
You can reduce the amount of time because it is conversational, right? It is conversational. So you want to get that pre-education down, so that maybe it'll reduce the time for the in-person.
Or you get to the nitty-gritty faster.
Yes.
At the consultation, when you've taken care of
some of it out.
Yeah.
Figure out what their goals are, because sometimes people don't even know what their hair goals are. They want sister locks.
Right.
Well, why?
Yeah.
Because it's pretty.
So,
but ask good questions to find that out.
Question for everybody, because I actually just got asked this yesterday. Currently, what is and I think I know the answer, but I want to make sure, what is the number of locks for the sample? Less than 12?
No, not.
I think it's 8 to 12. I think it's 8 to 12.
8 to 12.
9 to 12.
I say
9 to 12?
9 to
because
12.
eight will get you somebody's the way it's worded is 3. It's
3 rows of 3 to 4, 3/4 rows of 3 to 4 locks. So the minimum would be 9.
9. Okay, got it.
That part.
Maximum.
Okay,
theoretically
so
6, I guess.
I just had a person who showed me their paperwork that said 8 to 12.
Yeah.
In the book it does, but if you do that for the evaluator, it might be turned away.
Okay, that's where it was getting tricky.
Yeah.
Because I thought I had heard both, but I was like, maybe I'm the only one.
Yeah.
So when you are especially new and
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out how much time to allow for your consultation, because we've been having all kinds of statements going on.
Yeah.
Figure about how long it takes you to do a certain length. If you decide that you're going to do somebody who's got 10 inches worth of hair,
Yep.
you're going to take twice as long to do 1 lock, and you still have to do,
That may.
I would say, minimum 9 locks.
Yeah. Yes.
So figure that amount of time also into what you're choosing to set for your consultation time.
So, is there any questions for any of the attendees? Any questions at all you would like to ask? Believe it or not, the time is clicking down already. We just talking.
Right? It's been a really good conversation,
It's
though.
been great.
Yeah.
We already addressed what if someone wants to bring their spouse or someone else
Yeah.
into the consults. So we've answered that in terms of the pre-education. You're going to let them know that the consultation is only for that person, but during the pre-education, you can include that other person in the information that you're sharing. So like one thing for me, with moms and children, I still want to have time alone with the child to see whether the child is at a place where we can really do this thing. So at the end of the day, the answer is still the same. The consult is for the person. But when you're dealing with a minor, I think that that pre-education for the mom, and then allowing the information gathering for the child by themselves, and then bring the mom back in for the information sharing. That's how I try to approach it, just so I can make sure that I'm dealing with the person who has made this decision for themselves, whether they're a child or an adult.
So you don't deal with anyone under the age of 10, 12, is what you're telling me? Okay. So if you're somebody who deals with somebody younger than that, then there are certain questions that only the parent can answer. However, the child absolutely has an idea of what they do and don't feel, and what they do and don't like, and what they do and don't want. So absolutely make sure that you address the child and let the parent know, okay, I'm going to ask so-and-so, and I want to see what their answer is. So let's see, without any, tell them, tell the parent, in other words, to shut up, however you feel you need to say that.
Tell them to leave. They have to step out.
With little ones, I don't ask them to step out.
And for the child, they feel so grown up, right?
Very empowered.
They feel
Yes.
so grown up that they're part of this decision process.
Yes.
Right? Although
And
the
it
mothers-
also creates the buy-in
yeah,
that they're the owner of this, and they will absolutely they'll keep them up, they'll shampoo them properly, well, as best a little kid can, but
yeah.
And that's why I prefer that age group. I mean, and those are learning experiences. I've locked my daughter and my niece when they were less than 5, and that is not
for you.
That is, for me, that's not that is not the way to go. So
and I guess the only other thing is, if a person is coming for a consultation, you've given them appropriate pre-education, and in the middle of the consultation you realize that they don't meet the requirements to complete the consultation, you shouldn't feel trapped. Well, I have to, they're here now. Big example would be hair not actually clean and free of all products, dirt, grease, and horribleness. So,
or the length, or even the length.
might be too short.
Or if the hair isn't long enough, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not long enough.
yeah, if it's not long enough, it's acceptable to say that I can't, we can't complete this at this time. And
Or that I'm not able to meet the standard with the amount of hair that you have.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
As in the example of the lady with the alopecia, sometimes I don't think people go through the process of like opening the scalp all the way, making sure that you can see where there's hair, where there isn't. For that lady, that you could clearly see places where the hair isn't. So you have to decide, am I going to be able to put the appropriate sizes and numbers of locks that I need? And then if not, then you have a different conversation.
The only thing, Roselee, that's a beautiful point, because there in the book that you get, it says suggested. Okay, everybody looks at that grid and they say, this is the number 5 by 7 by. So please understand that that says suggested guidelines.
Right.
If you are able to work with, say, the woman with the alopecia, there is an absolute parameter for that. Please contact somebody who knows and understands those kinds of
idea.
parameters and guidelines to help
idea.
you get through that, because there is a place for that. It doesn't have to always meet the 400, 450,
Absolutely.
600 guidelines.
Absolutely.
So make sure that that's absolutely done as well.
I like the way.
I take pride in being able to establish sister locks on people that having low density issues.
Yeah.
It's a beauty in that. And absolutely, I'm not even considering that I'm going to do exactly what's in that book for that individual. It is a personalized service, and we're personalizing it based off what the person walking the door with. And so I always say to the practitioners, of course, for certification, you want to submit like
You want the perfect one.
like the perfect head, right? Like we don't want to send in things that people have to question, but absolutely, you're going to take care of that person. You're going to personalize the service for them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And that's the nice thing about the standard is it can be personalized and still be within the standard.
That's right. That's right. You can't make something be something that's not.
No, the only thing is you must know your terminology and how it applies, because you have to be able to justify what you've done using the appropriate terminology, et cetera, for your submission. And as long as things fall into, there are a couple of things that don't go, they won't accept for certification,
Mm.
but almost everything else, absolutely. The other part is if you got a client whose hair is as long as, 6 to 12 inches or more, it's okay to use that person as experience, but not for submission, because it's going to take you longer. And because of that, it's great to start to meet other people in your area if you're willing, and work with other people. Figure out how they do and don't work, and then, work with somebody to do that establishment. So then that person becomes your client, but you haven't stressed them because it took you 7 days to do their establishment.
Yeah.
So, there are always things that you can do in order to be awesome at being a Sister Locks practitioner that don't necessarily fall within that original stamp of the box that is what most people talk about.
Mhm.
And we talked about setting expectations to be realistic with yourself, and then be realistic with the clients, and not allow the clients to bulldoze how the process goes, but you tell the client how it goes, what's expected, when is payment due, what kind of payment I take, all that stuff is also covered during the consult, so that on the day that you decide we're actually coming to do the hair, there's no confusion about anything. We're already all on the same page, and we're just here to do this work because it's going to take us a minute.
Right.
Right.
Just a few.
All right, everybody, we are closing up. If there's not one more question maybe we have from our attendees, if not, we will close this up for next time. We so appreciate you attending, and good on you to recognize that continued education is important to becoming a successful consultant.
The Stylist Excel Network is an online platform that will allow you to build your business faster. I've been mentoring students in person and helping them to create 6 figures, helping them to quit their day job, helping them to have a clientele that helps them get to their saturation point, and also that has helped them to start mentoring other people. If you're just graduating from class, or you're feeling a little stuck in your current business and you want to get to a 6-figure place because there's no reason why you can't get to 6 figures with the Sister Locks business. If you're not there, then I'm available through this online platform to do that for you.